north of Baghdad, 1996. This was not a good place to be since the recent Desert Storm action, yet this is where Terry found himself now along with his spotter Sam Fielding. They were on an assignment to eliminate a high-ranking government official, and they were set up in the farmhouse waiting for the mark to show in a silver Mercedes. He was to be accompanied by 2 other cars with a security detail. Terry Mitchell was thinking, why am I here? Doing this? I could be working for a large corporation making lots of money. Yet, I am in some hellhole about to end some bastard's life. Terry was a somewhat handsome man of 6 feet, educated with a diploma from MIT, which he attended following a stint in the army. That he had attained the rank of sergeant in the course of becoming an excellent sniper and was a training instructor before being discharged. This innate ability of his for shooting and the fact that his mental makeup left him with no remorse or empathy with killing are the prime reasons that he was approached by a certain government agency and recruited for the job he was now doing. He had become a hitman, a common assassin for want of a better word, and after some 100+ confirmed kills he was tired of his profession, and yet he knew he couldn't just quit. That was not allowed. No one had ever retired from the fellowship, as it was called by his peers. Sam whispered, "Vehicle approaching." Terry took up his position looking through the 40 power scope mounted on his Winchester Model 70, .308 caliber bolt-action rifle and scanned the building 1,000 meters away. Noting the wind speed from gently waving grasses nearby, he adjusted the windage knob on the scope and took one more quick look at the picture of the mark. Then a black BMW 4-door sedan pulled up in front of the building, followed closely by a silver Mercedes 4-door and another black BMW like the first one. As they came to a full stop, men poured out of the BMWs holding automatic weapons. They were looking in all directions, including one that now looked Terry straight in his eye. Of course, he didn't actually see him as the distance was too great. Then one of the men at the front car lifted his hand and the driver of the Mercedes opened a back door. Then a man stepped out slowly, stood up and was looking towards Terry. The mark. Terry exhaled and squeezed the hair trigger. Fit. The bullet was expelled through a silencer. A small hole appeared in the man's forehead, and before he hit the ground or the others could react, Sam and Terry were already moving out of the farmhouse and climbing into the back of a waiting truck. They crawled under it up and wrapped on the bed of the truck. Once given the signal, the driver began to leave the area, headed towards the west coast. Several hours later, after driving around border checkpoints in Syria and Lebanon, they had arrived at a small port south of Beirut. There they boarded a 32-foot sailboat and were heading out to sea under sail. They had gotten about 2 miles off the coast into the Gulf under clear skies and a rising sun when a helicopter gunship was approaching from the east. Terry was at the helm saying, "Just act normal. Don't stare. We are just 2 guys out for a sail. Remember that. We are no threat to them." Sam nodded and replied, "Well, they are one hell of a threat to us." Then the gunship fired a missile. Before they could think never mind act, the explosion blew the boat to pieces. Some time later, a passing ship picked up a man floating in the sea hanging onto a duffel bag. The ship's medical man, who was not a doctor, more of a medic with some first aid training, had stopped the bleeding and stabilized the man. The following morning he had come to check on his patient. He asked him his name in Greek. The man shook his head, not understanding, so the fellow asked again in English, "Your name? What is your name?" Terry said, "Mitchell. I think." "Not sure?" The medic said, "You have suffered a concussion, along with injuries to your face. Looked like shrapnel wounds I have seen before. I stitched your cheek wound up as best I could do." Terry was beginning to recall what had happened but remained silent. The medic said, "You were holding on to that bag." He was pointing to a duffel bag. Terry said, "Okay. Thank you for your efforts." The fellow had no sooner left than Terry, with some effort as he was very sore from the blast, opened the duffel. Inside he saw a huge amount of cash, American $100 bills. He was trying to think where it came from. Shortly he was mentally picturing Sam carrying a bag that he had wondered what it was and where had it come from. Now he was realizing that Sam must have taken it from the safe house they had used when they had begun the mission. It was a deserted, older, quite ornately decorated large home, and while they were waiting for the go signal, Sam was constantly nervously nosing around. He must have found one of Saddam's stashes of cash that were hidden all over Iraq. The following morning, feeling better, he was up and about. He was standing on the deck of a small freighter enjoying the sea breeze when the medic and ship's captain approached. The medic said, "Good morning." Terry answered, "Good morning to you." The medic said, "The captain speaks no English. However, he doesn't want trouble with the authorities and wishes you to leave before we get to our destination. There is a small skiff he will give you for your departure. Tonight you can easily row to the coast of Egypt. It will not be a far distance. Do you agree?" Terry said, "Of course. I'm feeling better and wish no trouble for the captain. However, I have no papers, so I probably won't get far, but tell your captain. I will not involve him in any way. I am very grateful for your aid." The medic, writing on a pad, said, "Here is an address of a friend that can help with papers. He is very good and will always help those in need." He handed Terry a page from his notepad with a number and street on it, which Terry stuffed in his pocket, nodding and saying, "Thank you. I shall never forget this." Not long after it was dark, the medic came and escorted Terry to a small skiff floating beside the freighter at the bottom of a rope ladder. The lights of a city were not far off on the horizon. The medic said, "That is the town of my friend. Good luck." Terry climbed down the ladder into the skiff and was on his way. An hour later he beached the skiff, and carrying the duffel he walked towards the small town. When he was just on the outskirts of the town, he looked around and found a small abandoned hut. There were several old boxes and other rubbish to its side. Moving a few items, he had covered the duffel after he had put some of the cash in the cargo pockets of his pants. He then proceeded into the town. As he approached the buildings, a woman appeared carrying what looked like a water jug on her head. Without speaking, he simply showed her the address, and after a quizzical look she pointed to her left up a side street. He continued in that direction and repeated the same action, not speaking and showing the address to a man walking by who pointed further up the street. He was looking at numbers on the buildings when he stumbled on a carelessly left box that, after replacing it, he had seen Torrance Industrial printed on it. Just as he was starting to walk away, he noticed a man peering out a window above which were the numbers of the address. He showed the paper to the fellow, who simply motioned for him to come in as he opened a door. Once inside, Terry said, "English? Do you speak English?" The man said, "I am Hussein Muhammad, and yes, I speak English. What can I do for you?" Relieved, Terry said, "I am in need of a passport. I have lost my papers and am in dire need of same. I was given this address and told that you could help. Is that true?" Hussein said, "Yes. For a price, anything is a possibility. I am to assume you are American, and that you do not wish to go to the embassy for a replacement. Or you cannot. True?" Terry answered, "You are correct. Can you help?" Hussein stared at the face before him for some time, then handing Terry a comb said, "Here. Fix your hair. We need a good photograph." He was pointing to the side of the adjacent room where a chair was sitting in front of a hanging green cloth. Terry dragged the comb through the locks of curly blonde hair and Hussein nodded. He sat down. There was a flash and Hussein said, "What name to put in the passport?" Terry said, "T.R. Mitchell." "No. Mitch Torrance." "Yes, Mitch Torrance." Hussein grinned, saying, "Mitch Torrance it is then, no middle initial?" Terry answered, "No. No initial." Shortly Hussein had asked him to sign his name and Terry wrote, "Mitch Torrance" for the first time in his new life.